Thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to be talking about solving quadratic equations, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, but today we're going to focus on solving quadratic equations using tables. In the best case scenario, you're given a table and you're asked to find the solutions to a quadratic equation, and then what you're looking for is a 0 in the y column or f of x column and a numeric value in the x column. The key is always the 0 in the y. You can have any number in the x column, even another 0, but it's the y that tells you that this is an intercept of the x-axis. When you have a 0 on the y line, that means you don't have any up or down movement, so you're settled squarely on that x-axis. So when you're looking for a solution to a quadratic equation using a table, anywhere you see a 0 in the second column, or the y or f of x column, is an indication that that is a solution. So in this case, we have -3, 0, and -2, 0, and we would say that x equals -3 and x equals -2 are solutions to this quadratic equation. In math, we never keep it that simple, and so oftentimes you're given an equation and you're asked to solve, and trying to find the solution using a table is a very good method. What you do is you make sure that your quadratic equation is set to 0. You go to the y equals screen on your calculator and you type in your quadratic equation, x squared plus x minus 12. You do not type in the equals 0 into the first available line, usually it's y1. Then you push the second graph keys, they're here, second and graph, and if you'll notice second is blue, you hit graph and table up here is blue, so that's what you're going to end up with is this table. We start to look for the zeros in the y column, and I see a 0 here, so that tells me that a -4 is a solution. I've also looked at a graph. I've sneaked a peek at the graph here, and I see that there are two solutions. There are two places where this parabola crosses the x-axis, so I need to find another 0 in this y column. Since this one's at -4 on the negative side, I know I have an answer on the positive side. So I need to use my arrow down key and just come down a little bit to see more values in the table. And sure enough, here's another 0, and attached to that is 3. So I can say that the solutions to this quadratic equation are x equals -4 and x equals 3. In math, we always like to make you prove your point, so we're going to do it here. I'm going to take the numbers that we found as solutions, and I'm going to substitute them where I see the x's. I always like to use parentheses for substitution so that we keep our order of operations correct. And here I have -4 in parentheses raised to the second power plus -4 minus 12 equals x. And -4 raised to the second power is 16. This plus a -4. Plus and minus are in a multiplying situation, so a positive times a negative does keep this a negative. And then I've got minus 12. So 16 minus 4 is 12. 12 minus 12 does equal 0. Let's try it again with 3. Let's do the same thing. 3 in parentheses raised to the second power plus 3 in parentheses minus 12 equals 0. Well, 3 squared is 9 plus 3 is 12. So yay, 12 minus 12 does equal 0. And that's something important to remember. You are looking for numbers that when plugged back into this equation or substituted back into this equation, they do indeed give you true statements. Occasionally with the quadratic equations, you'll have some extra steps. For instance, in this situation, it's set equal to 6. It's not set equal to 0, but it's an easy fix. I need to find a 0 pair, and of course with a positive 6, a 0 pair is a -6. So I'm going to subtract 6 here and subtract 6 here. This 6 combined with a -6 gives me 0. There's no like term to combine this -6 with. Everything has an x squared term or an x term, so I can't combine it anywhere. I just have to insert it into my equation. So I end up with x squared minus 5x minus 6 equals 0. Now I have a quadratic equation that I can put in y equals. I type it in just like I see it. go ahead and look at a graph, and I do see that I have two solutions, so let's go hunt for them in my table. And I'm looking, my key is always that 0 in the y column, because when there's 0 in the y, that tells me that I'm dealing with x-intercepts. So I've got my 0 here, my x is a -1. I should have another one, but I don't see it. So let's use the arrow keys, and I'm going to go down because I need some more positive values. And I do see it here. It pops up as 6, 0. So that tells me I've got two solutions to this quadratic equation, one at -1 and one at 6. Every now and then you run into quadratic equations that do not lend themselves to being solved using a table, and this is just such an equation. It's set equal to 0, so it's an easy thing to try. So let's go ahead and put it into y equals. Let's look in the graph, and immediately I can tell that it's not hitting whole numbers. This is between 0 and -1, and this is between 1 and 2. So as I come down here on my graph, I'm not finding any zeros, and I can tell because my numbers are changing. They go from positive to negative, back up to positive, and that tells me the curve of the parabola has taken place. I see here on the graph that my answer should be between 0 and -1, and it should also be somewhere around 1 and 2. And nowhere over here do I see a 0 in the y column. So even though I have two equations to this particular, I have two solutions to this equation, using a table is not going to help me find it. But never fear, we have more methods for you. Stay tuned, and we will go through other methods in other videos. We're going to talk about how to solve using graphs, how to solve using factoring, completing the square, and using the quadratic formula. Thanks, guys, for joining me.